Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Jenny. I am from JennyCardDesigns. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend it here with me. My YouTube channel contains content that is intended to share paper crafting tutorials and inspiration with all of you. I hope that you enjoy. Today I'll be creating a design team project for the Scrap of Paradise. The products used in today's video were provided to me by the owner, Sarah, with the intention of sharing paper crafting tutorials and inspiration with all of you. If you are a Canadian crafter and you're interested in purchasing products locally in Canada, stick around. In this video, I'll be sharing a promo code where you'll be able to collect 10% off of your purchase from the Scrap of Paradise. All right, let's get into today's video. Okay, so I'm going to be using the Altenew Modern Birthday Embossing Folder that coordinates with the Altenew Modern Greeting Stamp Set. And I'm going to make a fun birthday card using these products. Now, one of the great things that I love about Altenew stamp products is the little guide that comes with it. You get a couple of sample card layouts and some ideas to create projects with the stamp set. I think that's a nice little addition to the stamp set, and I always keep those with my stamp for inspiration. So we're going to pull apart this gigantic Happy Birthday to You stamp, and I've just got a half sheet of cardstock. We're going to cut that down later, so the size doesn't matter. I'm going to line this up on my piece of cardstock where I want it, and I want to make sure that it's kind of evenly spaced from one side to the next. And I just kind of use my fingers to eyeball to see how much space is on the left and the right. And once I'm happy with that, I'm going to close the door of my MISTI, and I'll make sure that the greeting is straight, and I'll press and reposition my cardstock in the corner of my MISTI. And then I'm just going to press the stamp to make sure that there are no air bubbles in it. And I also want to condition the stamp. I want to wipe away any of the manufacturing residue that might be sitting on top of the stamp. So you'll know it's good and conditioned once it's sort of cloudy. All right, I've got 3 colors of VersaFine Clear ink. This is a nice pigment ink. You get really nice coverage with it, and I want to create an ombre effect. So I'm just going to ink up with my lightest color. This is called Golden Meadow. It's a very nice yellow color, and I'm just kind of stamping in like a half moon sort of. And I have a little tool that I created to help me apply pressure to my MISTI. And I'm just going to press the stamp and give the ink a second to transfer to the cardstock. I didn't get quite good enough coverage, so I'm going to repeat it one more time. And then I'm going to reposition my cardstock. And I'm going to go in with the next color, which is Summertime. This is a nice orange color. And then I press. And now I notice that I got a little bit of a harsh line between the orange and the yellow. So to prevent that in the future, I'm going to take a dry cloth and I'm just going to dab away at the edges of the ink so that it's kind of softer and it'll blend nicer into each other. So it's not terrible, but it is a pretty harsh line. So I'm going to come back in a moment and do that Summertime. But first I'll finish up with the Tulip Red, and I'm going to ink up the bottom and then dab away some of the red ink that will transition into the orange ink, and that helps to create a softer line. So you'll notice the difference in the ink between the orange and the Tulip Red. So it's more of a softer transition. So I'm going to go back one more time, and just off camera I went ahead and did that yellow one more time to try to soften the blend. And then I'm happy with that. I think it looks pretty, nice and vibrant. So I'll clean up my stamp and put this away. And now I'm going to sort of figure out what I want to do with the embossing folder. I want to pop this little panel into the embossing folder as the images line up perfectly. So I just kind of want to see how much I have to trim off of this panel. And then I'm going to emboss it. So I'll emboss it first and then I'll trim the panel down. So here's what the panel looks like embossed. It's got some gorgeous texture to it, and it really helps that Happy Birthday to stand out from the cardstock. It looks way better in real life. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start working on turning this into a card. So I've got a piece of Neenah Classic Crest Solar White cardstock, 110 pounds, and I'm going to cut this down across the 8-inch side. I'm going to cut it at 5.5 inches. This will give me a sheet of cardstock that is 5.5 inches by 11. And then I'm going to pop it into my scoreboard, and I'm going to score it at 5.5 inches. So this is going to give me a 5.5 inch square card. I'll use my bone folder and I'll crease the edge, and I'm happy with that. And I want to pop this panel up onto my card base, but I felt like it could use a little bit more color. So I have this really nice sort of alcohol inked pattern paper book. It's really nice, got a lot of beautiful rainbow colors, and I know that there's a pattern paper in here that's going to match these 3 color inks. And here it is right here. Really nice orange, yellow, and red. So I'm going to trim down a panel to give this a little layer in around my cardstock to help tie everything together. So I'm going to trim down a panel that measures 5 inches by 5 inches, I think. Actually, I'm going to cut 2 panels that are 5 inches by 5 inches. I want to put one on the inside of the card. So, and I also cut a white panel here for the inside of my panel where you can write a personal message or a greeting. I'm going to start gluing things together. I'm going to take my panel, which by the way, I have cut this down to 4 3/4 by 4 3/4, and I'm going to line it up on my alcohol ink panel. Okay, looks good. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the piece of cardstock that I have for my inside greeting. I'll adhere that down and press it onto my pattern paper. Okay, I'm going to pull in some craft foam. This is something that's also available at the Scrap of Paradise website. You'll find everything that I used in the description down below. So I'm just going to take my front panel and I'm going to just eyeball. I'm just going to make a quick cut and grab a piece of white craft foam to pop up my panel, and I'm just going to adhere that to the back, and then I'm going to adhere all of this to my card base. So I'm going to glue my panel down on the inside of my card, and I'll just get that centered as best as I can. And now I'm going to grab my MISTI and I'm going to set this card down with my MISTI on top of it so that I can get some good even pressure on my card and the corners don't peel up. So I'm going through this paper pack one more time to try to find a pattern that I'd like to use for an envelope. So I found one that I think will work well. And I'm going to use my We Are Memory Keepers 123 punch board. This punch board has a guide on the left-hand side that shows you all the measurements you'll need for multiple different sizes of envelopes. So I'm going to work on the steps for creating an envelope that is 5.5 inches by 5.5 inches. And the measurements for this is 9 3/8. So this particular piece of paper needs to be 9 3 inches squared. So I'm just going to trim that up. And now I'm going to pop this piece of cardstock into my punch board and follow along all of the measurements. So the first line, the left-hand side of this piece of cardstock, needs to be lined up to the 4.5 inch mark on my punch board. And then I'm just going to start scoring, and then I'll punch, and then I'm going to rotate that piece of cardstock one turn to the left and line up that scored line with a little notch on my punch board, and then score again and punch, and repeat this 4 times until you get back to the beginning. So we're doing the same thing, lining up, scoring, punching, and the next step we're going to round the corners. The top of this envelope punch board has a corner rounder, and I'm going to go ahead and just round all 4 of those corners to create a finishing touch on my envelope. And that's going to be it for the punch board. Okay, so we'll move this out of the way. And now I'm going to crease all of the folds on my envelope. So I'll use my bone folder to get good sharp creases. And then I just want to figure out which flap I'd like to use for the side and the top and which part to close. So I'm going to go ahead and apply a little dot of adhesive in the center, and then on this bottom piece I'm going to apply adhesive all the way around the whole outside edge. I'll use my bone folder to press everything in, make sure that that adhesive is good and spread around, And voila, we have a beautiful coordinating envelope for our card. Alright, so for the last touch for this card, I felt like it needed a sentiment. I needed to put something on the inside of this card. There are so many beautiful greetings in this modern greeting stamp set. So I chose the sentiment that says another year older, another year wiser. And I'm going to ink that up with VersaFine Onyx Black ink. This is again another pigment ink with great coverage for stamping. I love to use this ink for sentiments because it's so crisp and black. I'm going to close the door of my MISTI and press. I don't want to press too hard because I don't want to distort the words. Okay, here we go, all set. This card is complete. Okay, so that's it for today's video. You'll find the links for all of the products that I used here in today's video located in the description box down below in case you're interested in supporting a local craft store. You can use promo code JennyCardDesigns10 to get 10% off of your order of $100 or more. Please make sure that you support local craft stores that are in desperate need during this really tough time that everyone's going through. So if you want craft stores to stick around, we have to help them get through the pandemic so that we can all be together on the other side of it. Okay, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend it here with me. I appreciate all of the support. Coming up on screen are a couple of videos I think you may enjoy, including a playlist for card projects that I've created for the Scrap of Paradise. Thanks for joining me today. Have yourself a lovely day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!